West Midlands Police. We report on them often here on the channel. They've come under fire yet again after COVID penalty notices were issued by police to people paying their respects to the 1974 IRA Birmingham pub bombing victims. This included campaigner Julie Hambleton, whose 18-year-old sister Maxine was among the 21 victims killed in the bombings of two city centre pubs. Even though the force are seeking a backlash from the public and local MPs, Assistant Chief Constable Todd has said that he stands by the decision to issue fixed penalty notices to those in attendance. In November, an event was organised to mark the 46th anniversary of the attacks, even though the country was in its second lockdown. An event that West Midlands Police knew was going ahead, as the organisers were in talks with the force to ensure traffic disruption was at a minimum and that the event complied with COVID regulations. On the day, hundreds of supporters in cars and vans and on motorbikes took part in a cavalcade which threaded its way through Birmingham, ended up outside the West Midlands Police headquarters at Lloyd House. It's said that once they arrived at the force headquarters, Miss Hambleton went over to a group who was said to have all been wearing masks to thank them for their support and ask them to disperse. However, Assistant Chief Constable Todd later released a statement in which he said, "We're aware of a letter which has been sent to our Chief Constable by two local MPs. We acknowledge their concerns and would like to use this opportunity to bullshit our way out of it." A number of fixed penalty notices were issued following a gathering outside West Midlands Police headquarters on the 21st of November. Following a review, the people present were found to be in breach of Regulation 9 of the coronavirus legislation. This relates to gatherings of more than two people in a public place. He acknowledged that West Midlands Police had been given prior notice of the planned convoy of vehicles, which was reviewed in advance and deemed not to be in breach of the legislation. However, he went on to say that the convoy set off as planned and later paused in Bromsgrove Street, where there was a gathering on foot. We spoke to the people present and reminded them that such gatherings were in breach of regulations. They left a little while later and so no further action was taken. However, a short time later, members of the same group gathered again outside West Midlands Police headquarters in breach of lockdown regulations. Approximately 20 people gathered for around 15 minutes before leaving. On the day, we were responding to the spontaneous nature of these gatherings. Their intention to gather was not communicated in advance. If this had been known, a different policing response would have been in place. Now, forgive me for maybe being a little naive, and some of you may not agree with me at all here, but seeing as this would have been an emotional time for the people attending, and as he claims himself, the gathering outside the force's headquarters was spontaneous, you would think that the police would have been a little bit more understanding, especially considering that a fixed penalty notice being issued wouldn't make Coroni think to itself, "Oh well, no need to infect these people, the police have dealt with them. I'll best go find someone who thinks they can get away with breaching the government's advice." But no understanding from Priti Patel's brown shirts at all. Todd said that an investigation had identified that the enforcement action was appropriate, and he also pointed out that action had been taken against people at a protest in Wolverhampton in mid-November, where 12 arrests were made, while a rally in West Bromwich in December was under investigation. On Friday, Nicola Richards, MP for West Bromwich East, and Gary Sambrook, MP for Birmingham Northfield, wrote to West Midlands Chief Constable Dave Thompson, accusing police of singling people out for no apparent reason. The MPs said it is deeply concerning and morally wrong to find the victims' families of a terrorist attack who are campaigning for justice. We hope you and the force reconsider this policy and take note of our outrage and dissatisfaction in how the police have handled this. Ms Hambleton has said she did get out of her vehicle outside the police headquarters to briefly thank people and wish them well for their journeys home while maintaining social distancing. She said of the decision to issue fines, which were issued days before Christmas, "It epitomises the sheer contempt for us that we feel senior management at West Midlands Police have for the victims' families. If I pay the fine, it would be like stamping on Maxine's memory and the memory of all those who died." Now, to me, this is disgusting, especially after yesterday's report of Belfast Council requesting that the Police Service of Northern Ireland retract all of the COVID penalty notices dished out at a Black Lives Matter protest. Now, I know that some of you are aware that fixed penalty notices are being issued by the police forces on behalf of ACRO, the Criminal Records Office. ACRO, the Criminal Records Office, a private limited company in the name CPOSA Limited, is headed by police constables and run by Hampshire Police. That information you may already be aware of, but after some research I found something that I find quite interesting. I did a Freedom of Information request to every single police force in the country to ask them who the issuing authority is for the COVID fixed penalty notices that they're handing out, which, as you would expect, came back as ACRO. In fact, in every response I've had so far, they called it ACRO rather than CPOSA Limited. However, the force who runs ACRO, Hampshire Police, gave a very different answer. Now, I wonder why the police forces across the country are issuing FPNs for ACRO, run by Hampshire Police, but yet Hampshire Police say that the COVID fixed penalty notices issued on behalf of them actually go to the National Police Chief Council. Now, due to the limited time I have to research each story, I have so far been unable to find on Companies House, the National Police Chief Council, or the NPCC. The only NPCC I can find is a dissolved business and management consultant, and the closest I can find to the National Police Chiefs Council is the old Association of Chief Police Officers, or ACPO, which was dissolved in December 2018. Now, this has caused me some confusion, as if they're not a limited business, then should they be making money? They're certainly not a sole trader, and I cannot imagine the police wanting to be part of something that doesn't limit their liability. After all, it's what they do every day, isn't it? Now, I have made further requests with ACRO themselves by email, which were made on the 23rd of December. This request under the Freedom of Information request reads, Dear ACRO, the ACRO website states that the funds from fixed penalty notices for COVID breaches are held by ACRO in a separate bank account used solely for this purpose. Funds are being paid over to local authorities in England and Wales in line with legislation. Can you please provide a link to or a document which explains the legislation referred to in this statement on your website? When you say paid over to local authorities, does this mean that the police force issuing the report for a COVID breach receives the money from a fixed penalty notice, a portion of the money from a fixed penalty notice, or does another organisation receive the money from a fixed penalty notice? Does ACRO keep any of the money received from paid fixed penalty notices? If so, what percentage? Does ACRO only deal with COVID-related fixed penalty notices? Or does ACRO deal with other fixed penalty notice types? Now, they obviously have until the end of January to respond to me, and I will update you on the outcome of that request. However, it all seems rather fishy to me. But it kind of makes sense now why the police, including the National Police Chiefs Council and Priti Patel, are changing their stance on being more forceful when it comes to issuing fixed penalty notices, even though National Police Chief Council figures show 32,329 fixed penalty notices were issued between 27th of March, 21st of December last year. I wonder what the money is being spent on, who's getting bonuses, and how can it be justified? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Big thank you to channel supporters, especially these guys. Your support is truly appreciated. Don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts, as I know many of you will. And until next time, stay safe, look after each other, film the police and other officials.